So just another example of some of the things that might go wrong. And then this is my favorite example, and I don't know if we can play this link over there in the people that are managing the presentation. I don't know if it's possible enough. If not, you can go look at it in YouTube. But this is the definition of, if we were asking who is a politician 2.0, I suggest you look at this mayor, because I think this guy will run for president one day in the US. His name is Cory Booker. And this guy has basically won his campaign even more strongly than Obama through social media. He has engaged with citizens through social media. And the moment of truth for him came, I mean, there's been several, but the biggest one was in December. If you followed the news in December, you know that a lot of parts of the US and Europe got incredible amounts of snow. And Newark is a city that is usually not very popular and is seen as the armpit of America, they call it. No, the only thing you go to do there is go to the airport. Well, this guy was helping the elderly community dig themselves out of the snow using Twitter. Not even 311, just Twitter. And with that, he's been able to basically secure his re-election. And not only that, he's been able to push his public policy agenda much faster than other mayors in the state of New Jersey. So he had a big rift, and that's what the video is about with, if you know this comedian Conan O'Brien, you know, it's like David Letterman, but like kind of different. I mean, he made a joke, and that's what the video is about. But you can go check it out if we can't play it here. No? Okay, we can't play it. So you can check, just if you want, just go to YouTube and check Cory Booker. But this guy has now more followers on Twitter than Conan O'Brien does, which is quite amazing. I mean, that video alone has 226,000 hits. This is a little mayor. I mean, it's not the president, it's not a governor, it's not even a minister. It's a little mayor, and he's driving a lot of, all the indexes of his city actually have gone down. Crime has gone down, foreign investment has gone up, so unemployment has gone down. So he's doing quite well. So this is for me the example of, and how he can play with social media. You can check that out, and this is what I see the definition of a politician 2.0. But to add to that, a lot of what we are doing at Microsoft, and this is basically a personal passion of mine as well. That's why I basically ran through 36 hours without sleep and trying to get into a flight to come here to join you. But these are the Gov camps we have done around the world. And you can see here Sao Paulo in green, because I think you guys like green. But this is, I mean, it's global. It's a global initiative, right? I mean, we started in Berlin, and we went to Mexico City, and we've gone to Canada, to New Zealand, to Australia, Singapore. And I'll share a little bit of what came out of that. I mean, this is, in many cases, in some places, it's very advanced. In other places, it's the first step. But there is always some key takeaways that happen from that. And let me just share some anecdotal evidence from that, right? So, I mean, for example, the first GovCamp we did in Germany. And we had a very important analyst from Gartner, that Andrea Di Maio, who also is very close to the term Gov 2.0, who when I met with him, he said to me, I don't think this will be successful because the Germans are extremely structured and they will not understand a concept like a GovCamp where participation, collaboration, and transparency are important. And this actually was the first successful GovCamp. And the key term there was how to balance privacy with openness. If you know, because of the history of Germany, they want to be very open, but they're also very scared of how open they should be given their past history. But after the GovCamp there, the same people that put the GovCamp together, which was not only us, but other parts of academia, the private sector, they have created a Gov 2.0 association that is completely national. And actually this year they won one seat in Congress. And they've had their third GovCamp, which started with our first one. So the first step actually turned into the second and the third, and even now a force of influence in the country to promote openness and transparency. So that was in Berlin. Then we moved to Mexico, and some of Flavio and Jose Miguel were there as well. But the conversation there was around the budget. We had this event around September, and the key conversation was like, how can the budget be more transparent? Because it usually is never transparent. And we had the participation of a congressman, senators, and from that on, they continue to have this community building from the GovCamp, and they introduced a transparency law that for the first time includes the e-government space or the technology space, which didn't include. And the congressman is Rodrigo Perez Alonso. He has the same name as me. And he's a junior congressman. And he's now actually the president of the informatics committee of the lower house of the Congress. And he's pushing this initiative. And the first steps were approved, and now it's going for voting in the upper house, in the Senate. So it also created a change there where we were able to push for the need of transparency technologically, not only on the public policy side. That was in Mexico. Then I will not do all the 10 of them, but we had a ton of them. So let me just pick and choose. But for example, in Singapore, if you know a little bit about Singapore, it's usually one of the most advanced countries in terms of IT in the world. These guys are the hardest guys to talk to because they know everything, they've seen everything, and they want to do everything. So coming with them to this idea about, hey, let's do a Gov camp here in Singapore, they're like, well, what will we get out of it? We already have everything. So it turns out that they realized that their next, what they call their I-2015 plan, which is how they plan in 5 years their technology plans, was coming up, and they had to publish that in this past April. And they said, okay, we'll use the Gov camp in February, which is when we had it, to test it. So they actually brought their key ideas about co-creation and participation to the Gov camp, and we had a lot of groups there, and we discussed it like today, like what we're doing here today, very specific ideas from that plan, and they were able to modify it. And then something very interesting happened. They didn't account that the social media space might influence their election. As you know, in Singapore, one party usually wins all the, it's basically I call it a benevolent dictatorship, but don't tell anybody. But for the first time, they lost 6 seats in the House, in their Congress, through social media. And that's something that they added now to their I-2015 plan. Is like, how do public servants and ministers can engage better with citizens so that we don't lose another election. Because some of their most senior officials lost their seat. They had to resign. You can, of course, search for this in the news. So just another key example of what happened there. In Portugal, and this is closest to Brazil, and I'll stop after this one. As you know, Portugal has been in a very tough situation economically. And at the time we were doing the Portuguese Gov camp, which was in November of last year, the economy was about to flounder, still kind of where they are now, but if you saw about 3 or 4 days ago, they just changed the whole government. But the commitment from the Congress and the federal government was, we will use technology to see how we can elevate Portugal. And what are the key actions that we need to do as a government to create efficiencies. And if you see, one of the plans that they have created, that they have presented to the IMF, has a huge component of IT, of technology there, that was discussed in the GovCamp. So that was another big impact that we were able to do. I mean, and you can search this online as well, but these are just some of the examples, and I can share with you some of the pictures, I mean, just to make it even more real, right? So this was Germany, right? So very cozy setting as well, kind of what we have here. We had a same thing following with the Twitter, as Katia has been doing, and just a very open process of collaboration and discussion. This is Mexico. You can see that we kind of had an exercise around voting, around participación, and what were the key ideas. So just to illustrate, this was New Zealand. This is the Minister of ICT of New Zealand. This was actually a very interesting event as well because, you know, Microsoft has always had some rivalry with the open source community, and sometimes it doesn't get very friendly. And they were actually having kind of like a civil war between Microsoft and the open source community in New Zealand. And when we did the GovCamp, we actually ended up doing it together. So it was a great building community process for both sides, for Microsoft as well as for the open source community. And we broke up in tables, did workshops, and it was a great event and sponsored by both sides. So that was very good. So with that, I mean, I just wanted to convey some ideas, where we are coming, where we are headed, why we are doing this, and most importantly, leave you with 3 thoughts, especially now. The first thing is, yes, this concept is great and very positive, but there are some things that we need to be careful about, and one of them is exclusivity. Of course, technology creates breaches, and especially in countries where broadband is very, very scarce, it becomes even more divided. Hopefully with mobile devices and the access to them, this will be smaller, but we need to make sure that this doesn't become an elite, that those green and red lines are not just a small group of people influencing public policy. Everybody has to be able to influence it, not just those few. The second one is despair, and this is usually a message I send to government officials is, do not despair. Change takes time, and making this happen may take a while. Maybe you will not do the grand national plan on Gov 2.0, but you can probably start in a municipality or in a city, and then scale it. And the third one is not to be afraid to fail. I mean, it's easier said than done, because if you fail, you might lose your job. But it's something that we need to keep in mind. Maybe it's about starting with small pilots, small programs. Maybe instead of doing a whole town around 311, we can do a part of a city and see how it works, and then scale it. But just some of the three factors that I see happening in order to be able to implement some of these concepts. And I'm always usually tweeting, so you can follow me here. And I am also reachable through my email, so obrigado, and thank you very much. I'm happy to take any questions online or through you. Hopefully you understood my English better than my Spanish, and happy to have a conversation.